Exile. Xyloth stood before the Zorgian High Council, her heart pounding in her chest as she awaited their judgment. She had always been different, a brilliant scientist whose unconventional ideas and methods often put her at odds with the rigid hierarchy of Zorgian society. Now, it seemed, her transgressions had finally caught up with her. Xyloth Zikrezik, intoned the High Counselor, his voice echoing through the cavernous chamber. You stand accused of conducting unsanctioned experiments, violating research protocols, and endangering the stability of our society. How do you plead? Xyloth lifted her chin defiantly, her violet eyes flashing with determination. I plead guilty to pushing the boundaries of science, to daring to question the status quo. But I refuse to apologize for my pursuit of knowledge. The High Counselor's face hardened, his displeasure evident. Your arrogance is exceeded only by your recklessness. The Council has reached a decision. Xyloth Zikrezik, you are hereby sentenced to exile on the prison planet Earth, effective immediately. Xyloth's breath caught in her throat. Earth, the Deathworld, a planet so dangerous, so unpredictable, that it had become the dumping ground for the galaxy's most hardened criminals. And now it would be her home. The journey to Earth was a blur of cold steel and silent dread. Xyloth found herself locked in a cramped transport ship, surrounded by the scum of a dozen star systems. Some eyed her with open hostility, others with a predatory gleam that made her scales crawl. As the ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, Xyloth got her first glimpse of the planet that would be her prison. Vast oceans, sprawling continents, and swirling clouds painted a deceptively beautiful picture. But she knew the truth. Beneath that beauty lay a world of unimaginable danger. The ship touched down with a jarring thud, and Xyloth was roughly escorted out onto the scorching tarmac. The air was thick and humid, leaden with unfamiliar scents that assaulted her senses. A group of humans, her new jailers, stood waiting, their expressions inscrutable. Welcome to Earth, Xyloth Zikrezik, said a tall, imposing man with a scared face. I am Morden Graves, and I'll be overseeing your stay here. Let me make one thing clear. On this planet, you're nothing special, just another prisoner. You'll follow our rules, or you'll suffer the consequences. Xyloth met the warden's gaze unflinchingly, refusing to be cowed. I understand, Warden. But know this, I will not be broken. Not by you, not by this planet. The warden's laughter was harsh and grating. We'll see about that. And so began Xyloth's new life on Earth. She was assigned to a cramped bare cell in the prison complex, given a set of scratchy, ill-fitting clothes, and put to work in the fields under the scorching sun. The labor was backbreaking, the heat oppressive, and the company less than desirable. Her fellow prisoners, a mix of aliens and humans, regarded her with a mix of suspicion and disdain. Xyloth quickly learned to keep her head down and her mouth shut. But even as her body struggled to adapt to the harsh conditions, her mind raced with questions. What had driven these individuals to commit such heinous crimes? How had humanity tamed this death world? And what secrets did it hold? And most importantly, how could she use her intellect to survive, and perhaps even thrive in this unforgiving environment? As the days stretched into weeks, Xyloth found herself pushed to the brink of her endurance. The gravity, the weather, the constant threats both from the planet itself and its inhabitants, all conspired to break her down, to reduce her to just another cog in the machine of Earth's prison system. But something within Xyloth refused to yield. A spark of defiance, a glimmer of the brilliance that had defined her back on Zorgia. She would not let this planet defeat her. She would learn its secrets, master its challenges, and find a way to rise above her circumstances. For Xyloth knew that knowledge was power, and on a world as dangerous and unpredictable as Earth, power was the only currency that mattered. She would use her intellect, her determination, and her unyielding spirit to forge a new path, one that would lead her not only to survival, but to a greater understanding of the universe and her place within it. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, filled with trials she could scarcely imagine. But Xyloth was ready to face them head-on. For in the crucible of Earth's unforgiving landscape, she would discover not only the depths of her own strength, but the true potential that lay hidden within the human spirit. And so, as the alien sun set over the prison compound, casting long shadows across the barren earth, Xyloth took her first steps into an uncertain future, a future that would test her, change her, and ultimately define her in ways she had never dreamed possible. The exile's journey had begun. Survival. As the weeks turned into months, Xyloth found herself settling into a routine of sorts. Wake up, eat a meager breakfast, work in the fields until the sun hung low in the sky, then return to her cell for a few precious hours of rest before starting the cycle anew. It was a grueling existence, one that left her body aching and her mind numb. But even in the midst of this monotony, Xyloth found small pockets of opportunity. She observed her fellow prisoners, studying their habits and hierarchies, learning the unspoken rules that governed life on Earth. And she listened to the snippets of conversation carried on the wind, to the whispered rumors that passed from cell to cell. It was during one of these moments of quiet observation that Xyloth first noticed Jack Wheeler. He was a human, with weathered skin and piercing blue eyes that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 untold stories. Unlike most of the other prisoners, Jack kept to himself, rarely engaging in the petty squabbles and power plays that defined prison life. Intrigued, Xyloth began to watch him more closely. She noticed the way he moved, with a quiet efficiency that spoke of years of experience in navigating dangerous terrain. She saw how he interacted with the guards, firm and respectful, but never subservient. And she marveled at his uncanny ability to find small comforts in even the harshest of conditions. One day, as Xyloth struggled to repair a broken irrigation pipe in the fields, Jack appeared at her side. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice gruff but not unkind. Xyloth eyed him warily, unsure of his intentions, but the pipe was heavy, and she was exhausted. Yes. Thank you." Together, they managed to wrestle the pipe back into place, their hands slick with sweat and grime. As they stepped back to admire their handiwork, Jack turned to Xyloth with a small smile. "You're not like the others, are you? What's your story, Zorjan?" And so, over the course of stolen moments and whispered conversations, Xyloth found herself opening up to Jack. She told him of her life on Zorja, of the research that had led to her exile, and of her determination to unravel the secrets of Earth. In turn, Jack shared his own history, a tale of war, loss, and redemption that left Xyloth both humbled and inspired. Under Jack's tutelage, Xyloth began to learn the skills she would need to survive on Earth. He taught her how to find water in the driest of deserts, how to craft shelter from the barest of materials, and how to defend herself against the myriad threats that lurked in every shadow. But their growing friendship did not go unnoticed. Other prisoners, jealous of their bond and eager to exploit any perceived weakness, began to whisper and scheme. It all came to a head one scorching afternoon, when a group of particularly vicious alien convicts cornered Xyloth in a secluded corner of the prison yard. Well, sneered their leader, a hulking brute with a face like shattered glass. "If it isn't the Zorjan princess and her pet human, we've been watching you, traitor, and we don't like what we see." Xyloth felt a cold knot of fear twist in her gut, but she refused to let it show on her face. She had come too far, survived too much, to be cowed by a pack of thugs. Drawing on every ounce of Jack's training, she slipped into a defensive stance, ready to fight for her life. But before the aliens could make their move, a voice rang out across the yard, a voice that crackled with authority and barely contained rage. "Step away from her, scum, unless you want to spend the rest of your miserable lives in solitary." It was Warden Graves, flanked by a squad of heavily armed guards. The aliens hesitated, their resolve wavering in the face of the warden's wrath. Slowly, reluctantly, they backed away, melting into the shadows of the prison complex. "This isn't over, Zorjan," hissed the leader, his eyes glinting with malice. You can't hide behind your human pet forever. As the adrenaline drained from her body, Xyloth sagged against the wall, her legs trembling beneath her. Jack was at her side in an instant, his strong hands steadying her. "You did well," he murmured, his voice soft with pride. "You're learning." But even as Xyloth basked in the warmth of Jack's approval, she couldn't shake the sense of unease that settled over her like a shroud. The alien's threat hung heavy in the air, a reminder of the dangers that lurked around every corner. She knew that she could not rely on Jack's protection forever. If she was going to survive on Earth, she would need to become more than just a survivor. She would need to become a warrior in her own right. And so, with a newfound determination burning in her heart, Xyloth threw herself into her training with a ferocity that surprised even Jack. She pushed her body to its limits, honing her strength and speed, learning to wield makeshift weapons with deadly precision. She sharpened her mind, studying the complex web of alliances and rivalries that defined prison life, looking for weaknesses she could exploit. And as she grew stronger, more confident, Xyloth began to see Earth in a new light. Yes, it was a harsh and unforgiving world, filled with dangers both known and unknown. But it was also a world of incredible beauty, of untold wonders waiting to be discovered. In the quiet moments between training and labor, Xyloth found herself drawn to the planet's strange and varied landscapes. She marveled at the rugged majesty of the mountains, the pristine beauty of the forests, and the shimmering expanse of the oceans. And she began to understand, in a way she never had before, the incredible resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. For humans had not just survived on this death world. They had thrived. They had carved out cities and civilizations, tamed the wild beasts, and harnessed the primal forces of nature. And in doing so, they had achieved something that no other species in the galaxy had ever managed. They had made Earth their own. As Xyloth stood on the edge of a cliff, gazing out over the vast, untamed wilderness that stretched before her, she felt a sense of kinship with this strange and wondrous planet. She knew that she still had much to learn, much to discover, but she also knew that she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For she was Xyloth Zikrezik, scientist, exile, and survivor. And on this death world called Earth, she had found not just a prison, but a home, a place where she could finally unlock the secrets of the universe and of herself. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but Xyloth was ready to walk it, one step at a time, into a future that was hers to shape. Discovery. As Xyloth's skills and knowledge grew, so too did her reputation among the prisoners. No longer was she seen as just another helpless alien, easy prey for the strong and ruthless. Now she was respected, and even feared, as a force to be reckoned with. But with this newfound status came new challenges. Xyloth found herself drawn into the complex web of prison politics, navigating a treacherous landscape of shifting alliances and hidden agendas. She learned to trust no one, to keep her own counsel, and her secrets close to her chest. Yet even as she played the game of survival, Xyloth never lost sight of her true purpose. She was a scientist, first and foremost, and the mysteries of Earth called to her like a siren song. Whenever she could steal a moment away from the watchful eyes of the guards, Xyloth would venture out into the wilds beyond the prison walls. She collected samples of strange plants and minerals, studying their properties with a makeshift lab cobbled together from stolen supplies and discarded equipment. And as she delved deeper into the secrets of Earth, Xyloth began to uncover a truth that would change everything. The planet was not just a death world, she realized. It was a treasure trove of untapped potential. The very qualities that made Earth so dangerous, its harsh climates, its unpredictable weather patterns, its incredible biodiversity, also made it a crucible of innovation and adaptation. The life forms that had evolved here were unlike anything Xyloth had ever encountered, possessing abilities and traits that defied belief. And the humans themselves, they were more than just survivors. They were innovators, problem solvers, dreamers who refused to be limited by the constraints of their environment. In their struggle against the planet's many challenges, they had developed technologies and strategies that could revolutionize the galaxy. Xyloth knew that she had stumbled upon a discovery of immense importance, but she also knew that she could not pursue it alone. She needed allies, resources, a way to bring her findings to the wider universe. And so, she turned to the one person she knew she could trust, Jack Wheeler. Over long nights huddled in the shadows of the prison yard, Xyloth shared her discoveries with Jack, her eyes shining with excitement as she outlined the incredible potential that lay hidden within Earth's untamed wilds. To her surprise, Jack not only listened, he understood. He too had seen the spark of greatness that lurked within humanity, the incredible resilience and ingenuity that had allowed them to thrive on a world that should have destroyed them. Together, Xyloth and Jack began to hatch a plan. They would find a way to bring Xyloth's findings to the galactic stage, to show the universe that Earth was more than just a prison planet. It was a key to unlocking a brighter future for all. But as they delved deeper into the inner workings of the prison, they discovered a threat they had never anticipated. The warden, it seemed, was not content with simply maintaining order among the prisoners. He had his own agenda, one that involved exploiting the alien inmates for his own gain. Through a network of corrupt guards and shady deals, the warden was siphoning off resources and technology from the prison, using the alien prisoners as a source of cheap labor and exotic materials, and he would stop at nothing to protect his lucrative operation. Xyloth and Jack knew they had to act fast. If the warden discovered their plans, they would be lucky to escape with their lives. And so they began to gather evidence, piecing together a damning picture of corruption and abuse that stretched to the highest levels of the prison administration. It was a dangerous game they were playing, one that required all of their skills and cunning. They had to be careful, had to move in the shadows, and trust no one but each other. But they also knew that they could not turn back. Not now, not when they were so close to the truth. And so they pressed on, gathering allies where they could, striking deals and forging alliances with those who shared their vision of a better future. They knew that they were risking everything, their freedom, their lives, even their very identities. But they also knew that the stakes were too high to back down. The fate of Earth, of the galaxy itself, hung in the balance, and Xyloth and Jack were determined to see their mission through, no matter the cost. As they worked, Xyloth found herself changing in ways she had never expected. The hard lessons of survival, the bonds of friendship and trust, the thrill of discovery, all had shaped her, molding her into something new and powerful. She was no longer just a scientist, an exile, a prisoner. She was a warrior, a leader, a visionary who dared to dream of a better world. And with Jack by her side, she knew that anything was possible. Together, they infiltrated the warden's operation, gathering the final pieces of evidence they needed to bring him down. It was a tense and dangerous mission, one that pushed them to the very limits of their abilities. But in the end, they emerged victorious. With the help of a few trusted allies, they exposed the warden's crimes to the galactic authorities, bringing his corrupt empire crashing down around him. And as the dust settled, Xyloth and Jack stood tall among the ruins, their eyes fixed on the horizon. They had won a great victory, yes, but they both knew that their journey was far from over. Earth still held so many secrets, so much untapped potential, and Xyloth was determined to unlock it all, to use her knowledge and skills to build a better future, not just for herself, but for all the species of the galaxy. She turned to Jack, her eyes shining with a fierce determination. "We've come so far," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But there's still so much to do, so much to discover." Jack nodded, his own gaze unwavering. "Then let's get to work," he said, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "The universe won't change itself." And with that, they set out once more into the wilds of Earth, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For they were explorers, pioneers, dreamers who dared to imagine a better tomorrow. And on this death world called Earth, they had found not just a mission, but a destiny, a chance to shape the very fabric of the universe itself. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but they would walk it together, side by side, into a future of their own making. Uprising. In the wake of the warden's downfall, a new energy swept through the prison. The alien inmates, so long downtrodden and oppressed, began to stir with the first ripples of hope. They looked to Zoloth and Jack as leaders, as symbols of the change that was possible. But Zoloth knew that their victory was fragile. The corrupt guards who had once served the warden now scrambled to fill the power vacuum, vying for control of the prison's lucrative resources. And beyond the walls, the galactic authorities were taking notice, not all of them friendly to the idea of an Earth reborn. She and Jack had to move quickly, to seize the momentum before it slipped away. And so they began to plan, not just for their own survival, but for the future of all who called Earth their home. They reached out to the other prisoners, human and alien alike, forging bonds of solidarity and shared purpose. They whispered of a new vision for Earth, not as a prison, but as a sanctuary, a place where the cast-off and the forgotten could build a new life. Zoloth found herself at the center of this growing movement, her voice rising above the clamor as she spoke of the wonder she had discovered, of the potential that lay hidden within Earth's untamed wilds. And to her surprise, others listened and believed. Among them was Raxon, a fierce Zorjan warrior who had once been Zoloth's rival. Now he pledged his loyalty to her cause, bringing with him a small but dedicated band of followers. And there was Lena, a human prisoner with a quick mind and a silver tongue, who used her skills to spread the word and rally support among the prison population. Together, they began to plan for an uprising, a bold strike that would seize control of the prison and declare Earth's independence from the galactic authorities. It was a risky gamble, one that could easily end in disaster. But Zoloth and her allies knew that they had no choice. They had to act now, before the window of opportunity closed forever. And so, on a moonless night, they made their move. In a coordinated assault, they stormed the prison's control center, overwhelming the guards with sheer numbers and determination. At the same time, other teams fanned out across the complex, securing key choke points and cutting off reinforcements. The battle was fierce and bloody, with losses on both sides. But in the end, the rebels emerged victorious, battered and bruised, but unbowed. As dawn broke over the prison walls, they raised the flag of a new Earth, a symbol of hope and defiance in the face of an uncertain future. In the days that followed, Zoloth and her allies worked tirelessly to consolidate their gains. They reached out to the galactic media, spreading the word of Earth's liberation and the promise of a new era of cooperation and discovery. They negotiated with the authorities, bargaining for recognition and support in exchange for access to Earth's untapped riches. But even as they worked to build a new future, the scars of the past remained. Many of the alien prisoners, traumatized by years of abuse and neglect, struggled to adapt to their newfound freedom. And some of the human guards, resentful of the new order, plotted in secret to regain their lost power. Zoloth herself was haunted by the cost of their victory, the friends and allies lost, the innocents caught in the crossfire. She began to question whether their cause was truly worth the price they had paid, and whether she was the leader Earth needed in this crucial moment. One evening, as she sat alone in her quarters, a knock at the door startled her from her brooding. It was Jack, his face etched with concern. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and urgent. He told her of a growing threat, a faction of hardline guards and disgruntled prisoners who were planning a counter-revolution, a brutal campaign to wipe out the rebels and restore the old order. They had weapons, resources, and a ruthless determination to see their vision realized. Zoloth felt a chill run down her spine. She knew that they had to act quickly, to root out this threat before it could destroy everything they had worked so hard to build. But she also knew that such an action would come at a terrible cost, one that she wasn't sure she was willing to pay. As she wrestled with her doubts, Jack laid a hand on her shoulder. "I know it's not easy," he said, his voice soft but firm. "But we have to see this through, for the sake of Earth and all who call it home." Xyloth looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm not sure I'm strong enough," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I'm not sure I can bear the weight of so many lives." Jack's grip tightened, his gaze unwavering. "You're not alone," he said, his words a solemn vow. "We'll bear it together, no matter what comes." And in that moment, Xyloth felt a flicker of hope reignite within her. She knew that the road ahead would be hard, that the choices they faced would test them to their very limits. But she also knew that they had something worth fighting for, a dream of a better tomorrow, a future where Earth could take its rightful place among the stars. And so, with renewed determination, she set to work, rooting out the traitors within their ranks, fortifying their defenses, and preparing for the battles to come. She knew that there would be losses, that not everyone would survive the trials ahead. But she also knew that they had no choice. They had to see their mission through, no matter the cost. For they were the guardians of Earth's future, the ones who had dared to dream of a better world, and who now stood on the cusp of making that dream a reality. And they would not rest until their work was done, until Earth was free, and the universe was forever changed by the power of their vision. The uprising had been a crucible, forging them into something new and powerful. And now, as they stood on the brink of a new era, they knew that they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, and to build a future that would stand as a beacon of hope for generations to come. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but they would walk it together, side by side, into a destiny of their own making. Redemption. In the aftermath of the uprising, Earth stood at a crossroads. The old order had been shattered, but the shape of what would replace it was still uncertain. Xyloth and her allies found themselves in a position of power, but also of immense responsibility. They knew that they had to act quickly, to seize the opportunity before them, and forge a new path for Earth and its people. But they also knew that they could not do it alone. They needed allies, partners who shared their vision of a brighter tomorrow. And so, Xyloth reached out to the galactic authorities, seeking to negotiate a new relationship between Earth and the wider universe. She knew that it would not be easy, that many still saw Earth as a backward, dangerous world, unfit for inclusion in the galactic community. But she also knew that she had something to offer, a wealth of knowledge and resources that could benefit all of galactic civilization. And so, with Jack and her other allies by her side, she set out to make her case. It was a tense and delicate process, filled with long hours of negotiation and compromise. Xyloth found herself pushed to the very limits of her diplomatic skills, as she sought to balance the needs of Earth with the demands of the galactic powers. But slowly, painfully, progress began to be made. The galactic authorities, swayed by Xyloth's passionate advocacy and the undeniable potential of Earth's resources, began to soften their stance. They agreed to recognize Earth's new government and to provide aid and support in rebuilding the planet's shattered infrastructure. In exchange, Xyloth and her allies agreed to share their knowledge and technology with the wider galaxy and to open Earth's doors to trade and cooperation. It was a historic moment, the first time that Earth had been treated as an equal partner in galactic affairs. But even as they celebrated this victory, Xyloth knew that their work was far from over. Earth was still a deeply divided world, scared by centuries of conflict and oppression. If they were to build a truly just and lasting peace, they would need to heal those wounds and to create a new society that worked for all. And so, she turned her attention inward to the task of rebuilding Earth from the ground up. She worked tirelessly to improve conditions in the prison, transforming it from a place of punishment into a center of rehabilitation and education. She reached out to the alien prisoners, many of whom had been left traumatized and adrift by the uprising. With patience and compassion, she helped them define their place in the new Earth, to discover their own unique talents and contributions. At the same time, She sought to bridge the gap between the human and alien populations to create a new sense of unity and shared purpose. She encouraged cultural exchange and collaboration, sponsoring joint projects and initiatives that brought people together across lines of species and background. Slowly, painfully, a new Earth began to take shape, a world that was more than just a prison planet, but a thriving hub of innovation and cooperation. Under Xyloth's leadership, new industries and technologies began to emerge, transforming the planet's once barren landscape into a lush and vibrant ecosystem. But even as Earth prospered, Xyloth never lost sight of the deeper mission that had brought her to this point. She knew that Earth's true potential lay not just in its resources or its people, but in the ideas and values that it represented. And so, she began to speak out more and more on the galactic stage, advocating for a new vision of unity and cooperation among all species. She argued that the old ways of division and conflict were no longer sustainable, that in an increasingly interconnected universe, the only path to peace and prosperity was through mutual understanding and respect. Her words struck a chord with many across the galaxy who saw in Earth's story a powerful symbol of hope and possibility. And as her influence grew, so too did the ranks of those who shared her dream of a better tomorrow. But there were also those who opposed her powerful interests, who saw in Earth's rise a threat to their own power and privilege. They sought to undermine her efforts, to sow discord and division among Earth's people. Xyloth knew that she could not let them succeed. She had come too far, sacrificed too much, to let her dream be destroyed by the forces of fear and hatred. And so, with renewed determination, she set out to confront these challenges head-on. She rallied her allies and supporters, both on Earth and beyond, into a powerful coalition for change. She spoke out fearlessly against injustice and oppression, even in the face of threats and intimidation. And through it all, she never lost sight of the fundamental truth that had brought her to this point, that every living being, no matter their species or background, had the right to a life of dignity and purpose. As the years passed, Xyloth's vision began to take root across the galaxy. Earth became a shining example of what was possible when people of all kinds worked together in pursuit of a common goal. And Xyloth herself became a symbol of that ideal, a leader who had risen from the very depths of adversity to become a champion for all. Looking back on her journey, Xyloth knew that it had been a long and difficult road. She had endured countless trials and challenges, had faced down enemies both within and without, but she also knew that it had all been worth it, that in fighting for her beliefs, she had found a purpose greater than herself. And now, as she stood on the brink of a new era, she knew that her work was not yet done. There would always be new challenges to face, new obstacles to overcome. But she also knew that she was ready to continue the fight for a better tomorrow, no matter where it might lead. For she was Xyloth Zikrazik, scientist, exile, leader. And her journey was far from over. With her allies by her side and her unwavering commitment to justice as her guide, she would continue to strive for a future in which all beings could live in harmony, a future that she knew was worth fighting for. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but Xyloth was ready to walk it, step by step, day by day, until her vision was finally realized. And she knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would never give up, for the sake of Earth and for the sake of the universe itself. Ambassador. Years turned into decades, and Xyloth's tireless efforts began to bear fruit. Earth, once a symbol of the galaxy's failures, now stood as a beacon of hope and possibility. Under Xyloth's leadership, the planet had become a thriving center of innovation and cooperation, a place where beings of all kinds could come together in pursuit of a common goal. And Xyloth herself had become something more than just a leader. To the people of Earth, and to many across the galaxy, she was a symbol, a living embodiment of the values of unity, compassion, and perseverance. But even as she basked in the glow of her achievements, Xyloth knew that her work was not yet done. The galaxy was still a troubled place, riven by conflict and inequality. If the promise of Earth's example was to be truly realized, she would need to take her message to the stars themselves. And so, with a heavy heart, Xyloth prepared to leave the world that had become her home. She said goodbye to the friends and allies who had stood by her side through so many trials, to Jack, who had been her rock and her partner in all things, to Raxon and Lena, and all the others who had fought so hard for Earth's future. She promised them that she would return, that no matter how far her journey might take her, Earth would always be her true home. And with that, she set out into the galaxy, ready to take on the mantle of ambassador for a new way of being. Her first stop was Zorgia, the planet of her birth. It was a bittersweet homecoming. So much had changed since she had last set foot on its soil. But as she walked the familiar streets and spoke to the people she had once called her own, Xyloth began to see glimmers of hope. There were those on Zorgia who had heard of Earth's story, who saw in it a powerful inspiration for their own struggles. They looked to Xyloth as a leader, a visionary who could guide them towards a better future. And Xyloth, in turn, saw in them the same spark of potential that she had seen in the prisoners of Earth so many years ago. She knew that change would not come easily, that there would be resistance and setbacks along the way. But she also knew that it was possible, that with courage and determination, even the most entrenched systems of oppression could be overturned. And so, she set to work, meeting with leaders and activists, sharing her story and her vision for a more just and equitable galaxy. She spoke in public squares and private chambers, her voice ringing out with the conviction of one who had seen the very worst of what the universe had to offer, and had come through stronger for it. Slowly, painfully, hearts and minds began to change. Across Zorgia and beyond, people began to see in Earth's example a powerful challenge to the status quo, a call to build a society that worked for everyone, not just the privileged few. There were setbacks and challenges, of course. Those who benefited from the existing order did not give up their power easily, but Xyloth persevered, drawing strength from the allies she had made and the progress she had seen. And as the years passed, her influence only grew. She became a fixture on the galactic stage, a tireless advocate for the rights and dignity of all beings. She brokered peace treaties and trade agreements, fostered cultural exchange and scientific collaboration. And through it all, she never lost sight of the lessons she had learned on Earth, the value of compassion, of unity, of the fundamental worth of every living being. She carried those lessons with her wherever she went, a living testament to the power of hope and resilience in the face of even the greatest adversity. As she entered her later years, Xyloth began to reflect on the long and winding path that had brought her to this point. She thought of the prison where she had once been held, of the desperation and despair that had nearly consumed her. She thought of Jack and Raxon and Lena and all the others who had fought by her side, of the sacrifices they had made and the dreams they had dared to dream. And she knew that, no matter what the future might hold, she would always carry those memories with her, a reminder of the incredible journey she had taken and the lives she had touched along the way. Looking back, Xyloth realized that her story was not just her own, that it belonged to all those who had struggled and suffered, who had fought against impossible odds for a chance at a better life. And she knew that, as long as there were those willing to take up that fight, there would always be hope for the future. And so, as she looked out across the stars that had once seemed so cold and distant, Xyloth felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had done what she had set out to do, had made a difference in the lives of countless beings across the galaxy. And though the road ahead would always be uncertain, she knew that she had left a legacy that would endure long after she was gone. For she was Xyloth Zikrazik, scientist, exile, leader, ambassador. And her journey, though it had reached its end, would live on in the hearts and minds of all those who had been touched by her vision of a better tomorrow. As she closed her eyes for the final time, Xyloth's last thoughts were of Earth, of the blue-green jewel that had saved her life and given her purpose. She knew that its story, like her own, would continue to unfold, that new generations would take up the mantle of leadership and carry on the work she had begun. And with that knowledge, she drifted off into a peaceful slumber, content in the knowledge that she had made a difference, that she had left the universe a little brighter than she had found it. For that, in the end, was the true measure of a life well lived, the ability to touch the lives of others, to inspire them to reach for something greater than themselves. And in that, Xyloth knew, she had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. The end.